Before break, excuse me, we started lesson 113 and we talked about the slope and finding the slope in an equation of a line. And we're sort of the way that I don't really like the way your textbook does this, but we're gonna go along the way that they're doing it, and they're kind of piecing it together oddly. So this is lesson 113, sort of. Number one, we've already started it. Number two, I'm going to present it a little bit differently than they present it while covering the same topic. So let me spend a few minutes kind of explaining a couple of things. So here is a graph of a line. Okay, those arrows are terrible, but that's okay. And there's two important points that we need to talk about, and we're going to spend this lesson covering these two things. Technically, it should be two separate lessons, but that is kind of a waste of our time, and we can just do it in one lesson. So we're going to kind of combine lessons 113 and part of lesson 114, and anyway, okay. Just like when you put a point on a graph, there's my pen. Let's say I give you this point. This point has a value of x is -6, y is 3. -6, 3. That point is that value, okay? A line also can be represented in a form, but it's not a point, it's an equation. So it's an equation of a line, and you are going to hear this over and over and over and over. Y equals mx plus b, the slope formula, and it is the most used form of an equation of a line. Now x and y are going to just represent x and y. Every point on this line, here, 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 every point has an x and y value, okay? But what we are going to need to find is the m and the b. And lesson 113 concentrates on finding the m, and lesson 114 concentrates on finding the b, okay? And then it also graphs it. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend this lesson doing the m and the b, and the next lesson we're going to talk about graphing it. And the reality is this is not super hard. It's just kind of odd. And what ends up happening is that people end up making this way harder than it has to be. So here's what you need to remember. B is called the y-intercept. You always need to find your b first. Now, let me explain what that means. This is your y-axis. Y goes up and down. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay? So this line crosses the y-axis right here at -3. So in this case, b equals -3. No math is having to be done when we have a chart. Now look at this. -3, -3. So b equals -3. Y equals mx plus b. Once you put your formula or your equation into y equals mx plus b form, all you have to do is look at it and find your b. Okay? And we're going to do several of these. I just kind of wanted to show you a couple things. So what you need to remember is that the b is where it crosses the y-axis. Then the second thing you're going to need to find is your m. Your m is your slope. And the slope is sort of like the level of incline. Number one, if you're reading this line from left to right and it is going up, it is positive. If you are reading the line from left to right and it is going down, it is negative. Up, positive, down, negative. Up, positive, down, negative. And your slope, we talked about the slope a little bit before spring break, has to always be in a fraction form. Because, oh gosh, that's not even a word. Because you have to have rise over run. Now in this case, y equals mx plus b. My m is 2. Now here's the thing, I have to make that a fraction, so technically m equals 2 over 1. Now, what that will look like on your graph, we'll learn next week. And you're not even going to have to graph anything this week. I just wanted to show you this picture of the graph, because so you can sort of visually see what a line on a graph would look like and why the things that we're finding, where it crosses the y-axis, and then the slope, which we'll look at a little bit more next lesson. So here's another example, and really your assignment today is going to be to find the m and the b. You're going to be asked to find the slope and the y-intercept. You're going to be asked to find the slope, which is your m, and you are going to be asked to find your y-intercept, which is your b. So the thing that we're going to do is we're going to line this up. Y equals mx plus b. B is the y-intercept. So in this case, according to this equation, b, or the y-intercept, is positive 4. Whatever sign is here is the sign of your b. And then your slope is your m. So slope equals 1/2. And if it's already in y equals form, it's as easy as that. Now your homework is not going to be in y equals form. We're going to have to manipulate some things. So let's do that. All right, so here's an equation. And the assignment says rewrite each equation in slope-intercept form. Give the slope and the y-intercept of each equation. This is actually the very first one in your classwork on lesson 114. So we have to do 3 things. Number 1, we have to put it into slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So the first step that I have to do is rearrange this equation into y equals mx plus b form. So I need to move everything away from my y. I'm going to move this 3x over. I'm going to move this 1 over. Make sure your x term is first because it's mx plus b. So y is going to stay. I'm moving my 3x from the left to the right, so it's going to become negative 3x. I'm going to move my 1 over. It's going to become minus 1. And now all I have to do is sort of line this up. Y equals mx plus b. That's never going to change for slope-intercept form. And now all I have to do is look at this, because remember, second step is going to be to find your y-intercept. Your y-intercept is the b. So in this case, b equals negative 1. My third is going to be to find the slope, and your slope is your m. Make sure you have it in fraction form. So in this case, it's negative 3. How do I make negative 3 a fraction? I can make any number a fraction by putting it over 1. And guys, that is really this lesson. That's all there is to it, okay? We'll put it in y equals mx plus b form. And then pull out your b, which is your y-intercept. Pull out your m, which is your slope. Let's do another one that's a little bit trickier at getting it to y equals form. All right, so this one, we need to rewrite the equation in slope-intercept. Same thing. Rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. Give the slope and the y-intercept of each equation. So the first thing I have to do is put it in y equals mx plus b form. So I am going to move my x over, and I'm going to move my 4 over. Remember, it has to be the x term first. So I'm not touching the negative 2y yet. I'm going to move this x from the left to the right. It's going to become negative. Now, some of you are going to need to write that understood 1 in there. And I would, even if you're not used to writing it in, you'll see why in just a second. But don't forget, there's an understood 1 right here. So when you move it over, it becomes a negative 1x. then my minus 4 becomes plus 4. So we've moved everything over, but I'm not finished yet because I have to do something about this negative 2. So what's happening with the negative 2 and the y? Well, they're side by side with no sign, and two things side by side with no sign means multiply. So when I move that over, I'm going to divide, but here's the problem. I have multiple terms here. It's not just one number, it's multiple terms, it's 2. So when I do that, when I have multiple terms, I need to make sure that I divide all terms by that number. So basically, I'm going to have this divided by 2, this divided by 2. Because there's multiple terms, I have to divide all of the terms. In order to keep that equation balanced, I have to divide everything by it. So that negative 2 here technically becomes 1, and we don't need that. So y equals, that cannot simplify, so that becomes 1/2 x. And that's why it might be helpful to write the 1 there, because when I divide by 2, it becomes 1/2. Okay? 4/2 becomes 2. Now, as these get harder, they won't always be whole numbers. I think, oh goodness, sorry, I think the majority of them will be whole numbers right now. I kind of think all of them will be whole numbers, but I don't want to say that because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they should be whole numbers. Okay, so step 1, I've put it in y equals mx plus b form. Step 2, it wants us to find our y-intercept, and that's our b. So let's kind of line this up, y equals mx plus b. So my first step is to find my b. Well, that's 2. Once it's in the right form, I literally just pull out the information. Step 3 is to find my slope, and slope is m. So slope is negative 1/2. And we'll sort of next lesson understand and see visually what that information means. Okay, let's do one more. This is the last problem, I think, on lesson 114. I'm sort of jumping all over your textbook. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in y equals mx plus b. The directions say write in slope-intercept form, give the slope, give the y-intercept. So y equals mx plus b is the first thing I need to do. I'm going to move my 3x over. I'm going to move my negative 4 over. So that positive 3x becomes negative 3x. My negative 4 becomes positive 4. Now I've got to get rid of this 2. I'm going to move it over. When I do, it's going to become division. But because there's 2 terms, I have to divide both terms by 2. Now you remember me saying when we started working with fractions to leave your fractions as improper fractions, not to convert them back. And I said over and over, the reason is you need to use them as improper fractions later. Well, now's later. So do not convert this to 1/2. Leave it as 3/2. So if you type this in your calculator, I've shown you how to keep it in an improper fraction form. Keep it improper. Do not put it as a mixed number because then you can't rise over run that way. Okay? So now we need to find our b, we need to find our m. So y equals mx plus b. Here's b, here's m. So b equals 4/2 simplifies to 2. M equals negative 3/2, and that is it. This bit is the trickiest. Okay, watch when you're moving things over. Sign issues are big because people forget to change the signs. And then the second most often made mistake is not dividing all of the terms by the number when you're dividing. All right, your homework is going to be page 251. And we did part of the classwork problems. So all you need to do is number 2 on page 251. And what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to send me a picture of this so that I can make sure you're doing them right. Because if you're not doing this right, then tomorrow's lesson of graphing these, you're not going to do right. So do page 251. Send me a picture of those answers so I can make sure that you have them done correctly. All right? Let me know if you have any questions.